Welcome to Optimal Health Talk with Dr. Obinna. In this episode, we continue unraveling the world of stress following our last episode, which laid down the introduction and science. Today, we get to the meat of it.
But if you've not watched my earlier podcast, you may need to go back because I had done a segment on the introduction of stress. Today, we are going to go to understanding the stress response. Now, the earlier things I had done was to try to bring this to a point where it will be easy for anybody who have been in this generation to understand how to manage stress. First segment is where I try to introduce what the stress is, not just as a word, because we cannot look at stress from the perspective of semantics. The word stress, of course, is something that we all know. However, in its health implications, it has an entirely different outlook and has a perspective we need to know. So I need to reiterate that stress is not the enemy, even if we perceive it as one. And so my hope is that after this podcast, you will understand why you can just imagine yourself walking through the African savannah. The sun is setting, and the air is warm, you are sweating, but you hear a rustling on the tall grasses, and suddenly your eyes become locked into it, and with it, you saw this lion. Time freezes, your heart begins to race, your breathing sharpens, your muscles tense, and you are ready to run. You're ready to take flight for your life. That is what stress response in its purest form is supposed to do for us. It is a primal surge of everything that I have described, designed to give you a fighting chance when your life is online and when you're faced with a threat. But there is a thing here, and I want us to get it. That same system that saved our ancestors from all these threats as they faced it walking around is the same one firing when you check your email from your boss, when you realize that your bills are not paid, or you sit in a bumper traffic waiting to go to a particular appointment. It is that same system, the same hormonal responses, the same reactions. Threats have changed. Your poor brain cannot appreciate what is perceived and what is real. So let's break it down. Let's dive into the heart of what we now call the stress response, into the biological intricacies that brings this to happen inside of you when you're faced with any of these threats that I described, whether it is your mortgage, it's your rent, whether it is your spouse hackling at you. Because once you understand it, then you can master it. And that's where I'm here. It all begins here, and I want to say this. It begins here in our brain. The poor brain, a spongiform organ that is there constantly controlling our internal environment, but it needs to see and feel the external environment to harmonize it with the internal environment. But there is a specific tiny almond-shaped structure embedded in our brain. It is an ancient emotional commanding center that was placed specifically for the purposes that we're describing. It's called the amygdala. The amygdala is your personal security guard. And what does it do? It always looking at the environment, the external environment and the internal environment for anything that is dangerous that will threaten your health and your body. It doesn't reason, it doesn't ask questions, it just reacts. It is wired for speed and faster. It is actually faster than our conscious mind can process. So you see the lion, you hear the gunshot, you use the dog, your phone, you feel the phone buzz, and you hear a bad news. You're thinking about it as a bad news. It seems to have a default with negatives. That makes it protective. And before you know what is happening, the amygdala is already pressed the red button. It's firing up. It sends an urgent message to another component of our brain, the master regulator of our emotions. That's called the hypothalamus. And so the hypothalamus is where the magic begins to happen. Your body's command center, that's where the emotions, because it's now relying on memories of the past, memories of things that have happened before. And the moment it gets this distress signal from the amygdala, it triggers the second aspect. It puts the gear into what I call the two-speed system. These are two parallel systems that is going to prepare you for action, because that's what happens. There is a fast lane, which is the sympathetic system. The sympathetic system is the one that's the default system, and immediately begin to go lightning fast. So this sympathetic system is to create that immediate response that your body needs. It presses the gas pedal. Your body's built-in gas pedal. This is the sympathetic system. This system activates small pea-like organs right on your top of your kidney called the adrenal glands. They sit on top of your kidneys, and within seconds, the innermost part of the adrenal gland begin to release a hormone called adrenaline. Some people may also call it epinephrine. You must have had that so much. Directly, it pops it directly into the bloodstream. Epinephrine is an active contractor. That's what I call it. It contracts all smooth muscles in the body and speeds up your heart. They are not subtle because you're going to feel them. Because the first thing that happens is that your heart surges and begins to pump on overdrive. And then it pushes blood through the tubes, the arteries, and the arteries, because the smooth muscles are contracted, they are constricted. The smooth muscles are contracted, so they get constricted, and so the blood vessels are now pumping under higher pressure, redirecting blood away from areas where it is not needed, your skin, your digestive system, towards the big muscles of the body, which are the ones in the chest, the limbs. And do you know what it is? Magic to run faster, as fast as you can, away from danger. Digestion can wait. Your urine can wait. But the lungs will have to respond to that because the lungs have to bring in a little bit of more oxygen. So you're going to breathe faster. And then the cortisol coming from this outer part of the adrenaline will surge the glucose in your bloodstream to provide quick, cheap gas to the muscles because they needed it at that time. But you know what else? Because the adrenaline is constrictive, it also constricts the pupils. It narrows your pupils to focus on whatever what is thought to be that threat. And your muscles are also tense because they want you to sprint, run as fast as you can. This is what is called adrenaline rush. That's why your chest tightens, your hands tremble, you feel that surge of energy when you're startled or when you're scared. But that scare is not just the one that is real. It can also be one that is perceived. So adrenaline is not subtle. It has a raw power. It is designed actually by its precept to save our lives. That's not only the beginning. But there is a parallel system, the second pathway, that has to kick in when assessing all of this. It is a little bit slower, but it's more powerful, and it is an adjunct to the adrenaline pathway. I call it the slow burn, and that is the cortisol system, the hypothalamus-pituitary axis. While adrenaline is the match that when it's being struck, cortisol is the steady fire that keeps burning, stays slower with a sustained release. It begins with a cascade in the hypothalamus, the same hypothalamus responding, but hypothalamus have to call on another organ called the pituitary gland. The pituitary gland will now talk to the adrenaline to stimulate slower system. It causes the release of another one called the adrenocorticotropic hormone, or ACTH. What happens is that ACTH, once it enters your bloodstream, remember what we said, is a slow burning pathway, then release cortisol. And that's when cortisol, which despite the first squat that it had to do to bring the glucose level up in minutes, this time it takes a slower version of it, begins now in minutes, not in seconds, but it is profoundly potent. We think it is as potent as anything can be because what we know is that it continuously sustains the fight, or if you're running, sustains the flight. Where the adrenaline is the sprinter, cortisol is the marathon runner. It is the one that keeps you going in this after the threat. Try to get to harness what the threat is. It maintains the blood sugar at that level, ensuring that the muscles have fuel that is long enough even after that initial surge of adrenaline fails. But what it does, and that is why it's interesting, it suppresses all those non-essential systems. It suppresses your immune response, immunity. It suppresses the digestion. It suppresses reproduction. I mean, whether it is recreation or procreative, it takes the back seat in this survival response. But it sharpens your focus and heightens your alertness. At the same time, it keeps that going. So it's a double-edged sword. Short bursts, like we said, it is life-saving. But when it is in this form, the second phase is chronically elevated, is constantly pushing sugar in the blood, it becomes fairly destructive. When it is too high for too long, it begins to erode into other systems because the high sugar begins to produce advanced-like products. The suppression in the immunity begins to do. So It increases the propensity for your body to have heart disease. It also promotes the conversion of glucose to fat. And so you're going to have fat, especially around the abdomen. We have just said, and it is, you can see from the imperative and from what I just described, that it will now suppress your immune system, leaving you vulnerable to all diseases, including cancer, because the immune surveillance that would have detected the cancer cells before they change are not there. It begins to shrink the neurons because it takes away the memories. In anxiety, you don't have time for the mem to store memory, and that's what contributes to all the other components, including dementia. And we now know it also affects our general heightened anxiety and depression. That's why stress is not just a mental state. It is molecular. It is physiological. It rewires your cells. It affects your organs. It actually, we now know by epigenetics, alter the course of your DNA replication in your health. So, my friends, the system that was built for you to confront a threat like the lion in the bush in the Amazons or the savannah or anywhere like our ancestors, the lion, today's lion that we perceive and see is those emails that you dread, that mortgage that the banks are calling you for, the bills that are piling up, your children that are not doing well at school, the fear of failure in your career, the news cycle that you keep reading every day, the social media, the constant bombardment of your things from the social media that makes you so heightened in your emotions, the pressure to do more, to be more every day. Your body doesn't know the difference between the lion and in the bush. Threat that you feel within the looming deadlines, because it reacts the same way. This is the same set of response system. And when the system never shuts down like our current pressure cooker society, it becomes a chronic thing. We are constantly embellishing. And that is what this system that was now originally made to save your life is what begins to destroy it. Your stress response is not your enemy. It is your ally. I want to make sure I get it. I don't want to sound like a doomsday prophet. It is not your enemy. It is still your friend. The problem is that it is a system that is not stuck on position. If you try to take it away from that on position and switch it up from time to time, that's what your benefits. You benefit from some of those things that it is intended to do, but then you deny some of those things that it will use to poison and destroy your biology. So once you understand your biology system, you can now control, reclaim your body and reclaim your health in the process. And this is what I am intending to do in this podcast, in every topic that we are going to discuss in every day. So let's bring it home. I want us to travel back in time and understand. We kind of understood the lion's chase, right? We understood the lion's chase. We understood that coordination and primal dance between adrenaline, cortisol, and our survival. We got that, right? But here's the truth. For most of us, there is no lion, yet we constantly feel we are being chased every day with just things around us. A friend of yours made a statement, and the interpretation, the perception you have about it is what becomes a threat to the poor brain. The threats we face now are different, but they're not less real. I want to say it is your brain perceiving it. And the toll on our body is now silent. It is relentless, but it is likely to be deadly if you don't do anything about it. So the story of stress in our modern world is a story of you, me, and everyone that you know, your friends, your colleagues. You know about them. Now, this is what I want to say. If you want to now begin to control it, this is what I want you to do right now, just right now. As we are talking, as you are listening to this podcast, I want you to do this. Close your eyes again. Picture this. You wake up and your phone is already buzzing. You have those unread mails. Your perfect life sometimes feels as if you are less than you should be. You are running late and the traffic is crawling. Your bills are stacking up on your kitchen counter. Your rent or your mortgage or your children's school fees is due, and you are not balancing the budget, that your groceries are now more expensive than they were last week. Your child needs new shoes, and your husband is constantly barking at you. You haven't had a moment just for you in weeks. Your wife is constantly nagging you. and you feel this tightness in your chest. Life. That's what stress is. However, unlike the lion that is in the bush, in the Amazons or the Savannah wetlands or the Sahara Desert, this is socioeconomic stress. It's a new predator. We cannot help it. We are not able to in any way influence some of the factors that bring it. Financial uncertainty. Will I have enough to pay the bills? Job pressure. Will I have this job continuously? Can I maintain it? Am I good enough for it? Do I have the right qualification? My colleagues are now telling me I'm not doing better. Social comparisons where you try to see that everybody, especially with social media, everybody seems to be happy. Everybody seems to be up. Everybody seems to be wealthier than you, more successful than you and your children. You begin to wonder, am I doing enough for my kids? What about my parents? What about my partner? What about my spouse? The digital leash that we are connected with 24/7. The internet is buzzing, yet you are feeling more disconnected from the life than ever. This is the modern jungle. Amazon, the savannah, that's the model jungle. And your amygdala, your poor brain, your stress detector cannot tell the difference between that lion that our forefathers fought in the jungle and the same late mortgage payment or your late insurance payment. So it fires the same alarm every day, constantly. The cortisol response is constant, but our bodies was down built for this. So that system that is killing you was what saved your ancestors in the past. So let's look inside at what happens when that happens and that stress becomes a daily soundtrack. So when cortisol and adrenaline drip into your system, week in and week out, and through the months, through the years, over the time that you are an adult, they begin to erode the very foundation of your life. The heart, which has been pumping from you at 2 weeks in your mother's womb, have not stopped, have not rested, have not had any respite, is constantly working harder than usual because it's not just beating faster, it is pushing blood through hypertensive, constricted blood vessels, and then those vessels begin to have irritation, causing atherosclerosis. That's what leads to heart diseases and strokes. The cortisol is pushing your blood level so high that your your kidneys can no longer push it out enough. It begins to create what is called advanced glycated products. Your insulin response begins to weaken. Your blood sugar becomes almost permanent. That's what leads to diabetes. You now have this constant default of negativity that creates anxiety, depression, and then your memory begin to sink to dementia. If you don't do much about it, it creates the environment for Alzheimer's disease. You are now having more cold than you used to. Every infectious process that passed through your body cannot respond to it because your body's immune system is down. Look at what happens to your digestion. Remember, the blood was sucked out of the digestive process because it wanted to go and confront the threat with your muscles. Over time, your gut health begins to deteriorate. You begin to have so-called inflammatory bowel diseases. You begin to have irritable bowel syndromes, dyspepsia, and because of the lack of immunity, there are changes in cell mutations that will eventually lead to the cancer process. So stress is not just something that happens in your mind. It is in your arteries, your cells, your DNA. It is the silent architect that is behind all these chronic diseases that we just mentioned. And that is the simple part. The cruelest part of it is that when people who face the harshest socioeconomic realities in places on the world where we do not have, they often are the ones who are carrying the heaviest of the stress burden. So it is not just a mental or health condition now. It is a social condition because poverty, job insecurity, discrimination, these are just struggles. They are not just socioeconomic realities. They are biological assault on the health of these individuals every single day. So how do we break from this cycle? Let me try to see if I can make up some practical steps that you can take. And that's why this podcast is so important. And here's the hope. It is so powerful. We can look at stress as powerful, but so are you. You are the most powerful thing that was ever created or put down on earth. You are supposed to be the guardian of the earth. So everything was also put inside of you to take charge. So as the system is harming you, you can rewire them to begin to heal you. And there are some practical ways you can do it. There are things you can start today to reset the stress response and regain your health. Let's start with the one I talk about all the time, breathing, because there was an original intention to make our breathing, which is supposed to be autonomic, so that we can consciously control it. So your breath is a switch because you can slow it down. You can slow deep breathing signals to your brain that the threat is gone and you are now in charge. It triggers the parasympathetic, which is the other half of these systems. I want you to inhale for 4 seconds, hold for 4 seconds, and exhale over 6 seconds. I want you to repeat this cycle continuously over about 3 to 5 minutes. If you do that with a constant awareness of the breathing and focusing on it, you're going to begin to stimulate the parasympathetic. It is the all clear signal that your brain needs to say the stress is over. And you're going to see that you're going to begin to relax. Another way you can do this, let's look at another way, is to burn those hormones that are bringing this. Use exercise, physical activity, dance, walk, run, jog. In the process, at the time you're really feeling some of this overwhelm, just get out of the house and walk briskly around. It releases endorphins, and they are natural painkillers, but not just that. They begin to boost your mood and begin to tell the body again to reset that threat button and begin to reconnect those areas in your brain that make you feel better and healthy. So you were never meant to face life alone, because when you stay in isolation feeling all of this, that's where it takes charge of you. I want you to walk away, talk to people, love more, talk, laugh as much as you can, connect with people, because if you connect and talk with people and mix up, the social connections release oxytocin, which is a good feeling hormone. And I want you to do this constantly by walking out of your comfort zone, to go to parks and talk to people. I want you to begin to also do all of this together by training your brain to what is called mindfulness. It is the new neuroscience. When you sit still at the end of the day in your house and practice the breathing technique that we have just talked about, and put every other things out, including the phone, the light, the noise, and begin to continuously practice this breathing response that we described. It's called meditation. You are going to rewire your brain to feel calm all the time. And if you do it close to your sleep time, it will help you have an adequate sleep, which is another reset button that your body needs to bring it down to where it was, because stress steals sleep. So you need to set a bedtime routine where you begin with your meditative cycle and align it to your sleep. Reduce screen times, take away all the lights, make sleep a priority, not an afterthought. Sleep is a small step, breath by breath, and I want you to use that. And with breath by breath, walk for walk, sleeping well at night, you're going to see that it begins to add up. And you're going to tell yourself you're not powerless. You begin to redesign your health in your own way, because I believe you are the one that holds the power. Stress is a part of life. We cannot get away from it. Chronic stress is not inevitable, because we can break the chain from time to time with these factors that I just mentioned. The diseases that it creates are not your destiny, because when you understand your body, you can reclaim the power and block your body from shifting to those disease processes. And if you have them already, you control them, allowing your medical providers to help. Your biology is not written in gold. You can rewrite it as your own story. When you connect with people and socialize, love more, laugh more, and chat more. And then when you rest at the end of every day, choosing calm over the chaos. You deserve more than just survival. You deserve to thrive, and you can. Remember, this is the Optimal Health Talk with Dr. Obinna. Let's keep learning from each other. Let's keep thriving. Until next time, I want you to begin today to redesign your health with knowledge. I want you to stay tuned to Optimal Health Talk. We have so much more coming up for you in the coming days.